Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Zero to Empire podcast. On this episode, I have Andrew O'Brien, and he is actually a stress and burnout coach. And he's going to be talking about his story, what inspired him to actually become a coach, and a lot of interesting things that you need to listen and pay attention to. So, for Andrew, what actually inspired you to become a coach and go down this journey to where you are today?
Yeah. So whenever I get that question, I always say that like whenever coaches or therapists or anyone like in the helping profession, they specialize in a certain thing, it basically means that they've struggled with that certain thing for a lot of their life. And so that was the case with me anyway. And the reason why I'm in this lane right now as a coach is because I've struggled um, a lot of my life with I call it mastering my own stress and living without burnout, because I experienced many different rounds of burnout, not fun, physical, emotional, and behavioral stress symptoms, all connected with that. And like I would say 4 years ago, it came to a boiling point for me, and that was like my last round of burnout. And I was all like, no, life can't just be this, like over and over and over again. Like there has to be something better here. There has to be something more to this life. And it didn't all happen in one day. Like that awareness didn't happen in one day. It was like a culmination of years of going through this, experiencing this, getting like pieces of things in science throughout the years, and putting all of those different puzzle pieces together, and then figuring it all out with the help. I actually was working with a therapist at the time, because that last round of burnout was a dark period for me. I was very down. I thought I was clinically depressed. Turns out I wasn't, but I was just very, very down. And yeah, with the support of her, she was able to bring me to a space where I was able to identify like one of these, actually a couple of reasons why I kept experiencing this burnout. And then not only helping me realize the why, but then helping me uncover, okay, so what can I do about it? And yeah, that at a high level is basically what got me into this seat as a coach, because I I knew I know now like what the science is, and what we can do, how we can apply it into our lives in ways that are meaningful for us to truly master that stress and live without burnout. And when we do that, we literally live longer, and we live with more purpose. We live with more clarity. We live with more prosperity and peace. And that's what I was craving, and that's what I was able to create for myself. And so as a coach, I'm able to partner with my clients in this kind of way. And so that's really the long and short of how I got into this seat.
That's solid, and I'm glad that your therapist ended up helping you, that you were helping or living a less stress life, because stress is very toxic and be really bad for you. And I'm glad you're helping other people do the exact same. So to go back to what you're talking about with the therapist, how did actually she help you discover coaching?
Yeah. All right. So there was so one of my spiritual gurus, and I really love this woman so much. Back then, she was doing a lot of Facebook Lives, and so I was following her, and she did one of these Facebook Lives, and the topic was all like, "What is your life purpose?" And so that piqued my interest, because I knew that what I was doing anyway in my life professionally, that was one of the things that was contributing to my burnout. And so I was like, all right, must tune in to this Facebook Live. And so that's what I did. And in that Facebook Live, this person, she threw out a few key questions for her listeners to reflect on. And one of them really struck home with me. And that one question is, what do you always do for free? And in her mind, in my mind, this question was key, because generally speaking, when we do things for free, it's things that we like to do. And she said, if you can figure out how to make a career out of that's a win-win situation. So I took that question, journaled on that question, spent a lot of time with it, ended up filling up like 2 8.5 by 11 pages of things that I did for free. And then that's what I brought to my therapist. I let my therapist know, hey, this is a question that I recently reflected on. She's like, do you mind reading it out, like what you wrote? And I said, totally, let's go. And so I read it all out without even blinking an eye. She was all like, is like, have you ever considered becoming a life coach? Because everything that you just, mentioned here is screaming to me life coach. And it was from that moment. I actually lied to her in the moment. I corrected that record later on, but like in the moment I said, no, I haven't. But really, I did. Like maybe a few years back, I remember vividly having a conversation with a friend walking down one of these avenues here in the city. And I had that fleeting moment. I was like, I think I'm going to look into becoming a life coach, but then it kind of like went in and went out, never did anything with it. So when this therapist said, have you ever considered becoming a life coach? In the moment, I said no, but really I said yes. And then the more I kind of researched it and got into it, the more I learned about it, the more passionate I became about it. And the more that I did the actual work, I saw how meaningful it is to partner with folks in these ways. Because when you're partnering with folks in these ways, it's like when you put both of these brains together, you are unlocking so much potential on the client side. And specifically in my lane, in the stress and burnout lane, really what I do is supporting folks in living without burnout so that their North Star becomes that much more clearer, possible, attainable, all the things. And so that's really like how this profession was uncovered for me.
Yeah, that's a really nice journey. And when it came to the very first steps of your coaching journey, what did they look like for you?
Yeah, it was. So I was actually working in a hospital system at the time that I was going through all of this like work with a therapist, and so my plan was to stick it out in the role that I was doing while getting trained and certified as a coach, because I actually do take the certification process I feel like as a coach, if you're putting yourself in that seat, you have to be qualified, you have to be trained, you have to be certified under these accredited bodies. And so I took that very seriously. And so my plan was to do that, get certified, and then launch, build my business on the side, and then leave the hospital. But wouldn't you know, the universe had other plans. And at that hospital, there was a position that opened up, a coach position that opened up during this journey, during this process. And I ended up applying to it and ended up getting it. And I've been working there as well, in addition to what I do with my business.
That's solid. And what did it feel like going from struggling with stress to teaching others how to master it?
I mean, there's nothing like it. I think any coach would tell you that whatever their specialty is when you get to observe these transformations, there's nothing like it. It is the most rewarding experience I have ever experienced in a professional domain, in a professional setting, because you're really like, it is humanity at its rawest, at its finest, messiest, and like everything. It is a beautiful partnership to be in that space. And in my particular lane, in stress and burnout, I know that when we are overwhelmed, when we are burned out, we're not making the best decisions for us, for other people. And so when we are mastering these nervous systems of ours, we're going to be making those better decisions all around. And I always say, like, my vision is to see a planet without burnout, because physiologically it's possible. And that's what drives me. It's like the larger benefit of all of this, but then also the individual benefit of all of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does. That is very important to have less burnout for sure. And before we did this podcast, we were talking about how there's a difference between stress mastery and stress management. How would you tell the difference to people listening in?
Yeah, love that question, and it's why I use the words stress mastery as opposed to stress management is because, to me, stress management is like you are, the stress is still like in control. And I'm not diminishing the importance of stress management whatsoever, because like it's in my mind, it's there to help someone kind of get through in a way. But that stress is still kind of like in that driver's seat, in control. Whereas stress mastery, the way that I see it, is like you are in control. We can never get rid of our stress. We have stress response systems as human beings, and so that's always going to be a part of us. We can never get rid of stress completely. So this stress mastery piece, it's literally proactively doing the work so as to master it. You are in control. And so when those times of stress come into your life, you're still coasting. Yeah, I'm not suggesting that life is all going to be like roses. We're going to experience challenges and difficulties as humans. That's just par for the course of being alive. That's not going anywhere. But when we are mastering these nervous systems, when we are mastering the stress, we are in control, and we can make these decisions to help us get through those situations a lot more efficiently and a lot more effectively. That's how I describe the difference between the management and mastery.
Yeah, that's definitely a key difference, and it's a good way to look at stress, honestly. And who do you primarily work with today, and how do you serve them?
Yeah, so I work with stressed out adults. In my one-on-one coaching journeys that I offer, those are the folks who I work with, folks who are burned out, folks who are feeling that stress and not sure how to get out of that stress, feeling overwhelmed, feeling like in a hamster wheel, not able to kind of get out of that hamster wheel of overwhelm. Folks who are experiencing like pain, even like physical pain, emotional pain. The physical stress symptoms run the gamut. Emotional stress symptoms run the gamut. I work with folks like that. When the structural damage from a physical perspective is ruled out by the MD, that's a space that I for sure work in, and we're able to kind of, once we master this stress, those get alleviated. So all of those symptoms go away. They go by the wayside. We can leave all of those in the past. That's a beautiful thing. So that on a one-on-one perspective, stress out adults who are experiencing these types of things. And then I also partner with organizations and groups who are looking to offer their members information about stress and burnout, how they can take back their control, take back that power. And so I offer, like, I don't like to use the word presentation. That to me is boring. So I offer like these events, and they're interactive, and workshops as well to support people through that from an organizational perspective.
Yeah, that's super solid. And so tell me about the O'Brien 10 and how you actually use science to empower your clients.
Yeah, so the O'Brien 10 at a very high level, it's basically, so what I've learned along my journey and along my training is that there's essentially 10 buckets of relevant science. And so what I've done, I can't take credit for the science, but I can take credit for like packaging up in these 10 domains of science. And so that O'Brien 10 highlights these 10 domains of science, and so how I incorporate that into the work that I do with my clients with my coaching journeys. In addition to the coaching part of it, I also offer a couple of different workshops. And one of these workshops speaks specifically to that O'Brien 10. And what we do is basically present you interactively with the information, with the science, providing you the standard recommendations from agencies such as the CDC and what we should be doing to receive optimal results. And then we talk about, I have this like wheel of stress. It's a signature tool of mine, and clients are able to kind of go through this wheel of stress and rank how they believe they are in relation to the science, in relation to the recommendations, and rank between 1 and 10. And after the workshop, they'll see where they are, where these ranks are, and that helps them bring focus and priority to different areas of this wheel to see where they might want to start making a dent in first, like what's most important to them on where to start. And then from there, we get back to the coaching piece on supporting someone through co-creating a roadmap to achieve whatever it is that they want within that wheel of stress.
Yeah, that's a clever way to go through that and handle it as like for each client's different situations. And so before this, you actually were talking about how you recently launched a pro bono service for refugees. What actually inspired that?
Oh, wow. Yeah. So what inspired that? That is a story that's near and dear to my heart. Thank you for asking that. So last July, I had the opportunity to go to parts of Africa. And the whole catalyst for this trip was really to go gorilla trekking with the gorillas. It's something that I've always wanted to do. And so my goal was to have that experience in Rwanda, Uganda, and the Congo. Totally accomplished that. And through that experience, when I was in the Congo, I was connected with my tour guide there. And he asked me one morning if I wanted to visit a refugee camp in Goma. Goma is one of the main cities in the Congo. And like, no idea that the refugee camps were even there. And I'm a huge traveler, but like never once did I even think about possibly doing something like that. It's not something like a tourist would kind of do. But I'm so glad that he asked that question. Something in my heart told me to say yes to that. And so I said yes to that. And so we went. We spent some time in this refugee camp. It was heartwarming. It was heart-wrenching. It was heart-wrenching to see the conditions in which these people were living in. And it was heartwarming to see like the hope that and the love that they were exuding out. I'll never, ever, ever forget that. They were living in nothing, like these small, tiny white tents. And on the outsides of these tents were like graffiti art. And so like all of them, so positive, so uplifting, words like love, one Africa. It's words are hard to make it all make sense. I'm still trying to reconcile all of that. Long story short, I did start a fundraiser to support that camp, which was successful. This past January, unfortunately, the reason why these refugees landed in Goma was because they were from villages where rebels were being very violent. And so they chose to leave their villages to settle in the city of Goma, and that's how they got to those refugee camps. So late January this year, these rebels actually overtook Goma violently. And so we weren't able to do these kinds of events like the food, the dancing, the soccer playing with the money that we were raising. And so that really like got me thinking like, what else can I do? Because I can't stop. I need to find some way to keep helping these people. And so that's what led me to this. That's what led me to think, all right, how can I use my skills to support this population of people? And so just very recently, as a couple months ago, I made the announcement to offer pro bono coaching for refugees and for people impacted by war, offering like a few slots throughout the course of the year, because everyone deserves that access. It goes back to like why I wanted to kind of create this fundraiser in the first place, and the whole catalyst was like I saw a little boy holding a deflated, dirty soccer ball, but it was his ball. And in my mind, when I got back to New York, that's where I live, that image came to me repeatedly, and I was like, what if I was able to get him a new ball? Like, what if I were to send money to that tour guide to buy him a new ball? What if he's the next David Beckham? We would have no idea, because like he doesn't have the access to like a real soccer ball. And so it goes back to the access. I made that connection in my head, and I said, I have to offer this service to refugees and people impacted by war. So that is a whole huge topic I could keep talking about, but that's the long and the short of it.
Yeah, it's very sweet and nice of you to give back to that. And like, it's very unfortunate what happened to that whole community as a byproduct of the war and everything. And what would you say is actually the biggest misconception people have about coaching in general?
think the biggest misconception is that people believe that coaches are here to tell you what to do. And that is not what coaching is all about. And I think people have that perception for valid reasons. I think when you think of a coach, generally speaking, you think of an athletic coach. And it's very much like that. And athletic coaching is very different from life coaching, health coaching. So I think it's just like part of the system that's adding to the confusion. But I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions. And I think because of that, I think people shy away from it. People don't know what coaching is truly all about. And if you don't know what it's all about, you're not going to really like explore it further. On top of that, if you believe that they are there just to tell you what to do, then I think they might shy away from that as well. Coaching is more of it's a partnership. I always say it's a partnership, and it's a dynamic. We are using our expertise to support you for sure, but our expertise is really all about the questions that we ask, and the observations that we have, the reflections that we have, all as a way to like pull out the magic in the client that we're working with.
Yeah.
With periodic pieces of information with their permission, for sure. But like it's not a forum where we're telling someone what to do.
Yeah, exactly. I understand that. And how do you actually want your clients to feel after working with you when it comes to the advice you usually try to give them and they really want to hear it?
Can you ask that again?
Yeah. How do you actually, what do you want your clients to feel after working with you? And is there any kind of best advice that you like to give them? Something that like they really need to hear?
Got it. Yeah. So what I always hope for, right? I can never make any guarantees because it takes two to tango. But what I truly hope for every time that I work with someone new is that they realize and they actually see and create and achieve and obtain what it is that they're looking to get out of this coaching journey with me. And so in my case, it's generally getting through that burnout and leaving that in the dust and being more proactive with mastering their nervous systems and then building on top of that. Like once you're in that space, you do have more clarity. You do have more insight into like what you're passionate about. What do I want to be doing? What do I want for my life? What does fulfillment mean to me? And once we get through that burnout, that's when all of that magic becomes clearer. And so my hope is always that not only are they mastering their stress in this way, but they're also achieving those North Stars of theirs. That's what I always hope for. And then if there's a piece of advice that there's two pieces of advice actually that I'd like to share. One is to remember if you are currently feeling it right now, and by feeling it, I mean if you are one of the folks who are burned out right now, number one, know that you are not alone. And number two, to remember that compassion, that self-compassion, that self-kindness for yourself. It's physiological. If we are not proactively mastering our stress, we are going to reach burnout. That is physiological. So if you are there, as I have been before, have compassion for yourself, have kindness for yourself, and know that there's hope. Know that you can apply the science in a way that's meaningful for you. Yeah, the science is applicable to all as humans, but how you apply it into your life is going to be personal to you. And so finding a way to incorporate the science into your life that's meaningful for you is beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. And so that's one piece of advice. The second piece of advice is, and this could be a harder one to hear. This is all about when it comes to our stress. It is I always say it's not the situation that's creating our stress. It is our reaction to the situation that is creating our stress. And sometimes that's a tough one for people to swallow, because there are some really tough situations out there. Think about the war that I just talked about. It is our reaction to those situations that's creating that stress for us. And I'm not taking away the feelings of stress, like that's a really real thing. But knowing that it's our reaction, we can do something about it. We can change it. That's taking the power back. We can change our reaction. The example that I actually like to share here is, to help demonstrate this a little bit more, is, and actually, I might have mentioned this to you before, but I'm gonna say it again, because you can't make this stuff up. This happened to me last year, and it was a day I had a client in the morning, I had a client in the afternoon, and all of this was unsolicited. And the client in the morning, they brought up through their journey their fear of flying and what happens to them when they get on a plane. They literally hate flying for so many vivid reasons. Client in the afternoon couldn't wait to tell me that they started a journey to become a licensed pilot, and shared with me that they love flying so much, and the freedom that they feel while they're in the air. And so this to me is such a salient example, because like the plane is the plane is the situation. The plane hasn't changed. What has changed is our reaction to the plane. And that, I hope, provides a little bit more clarity as to that second piece of advice.
Yeah, that's a solid piece of advice. And when it comes to people wanting to come work with you or reach out to you, where can they find you?
Yeah, they can find me on my website. They can find me on my website. I offer like complimentary stress relief strategy calls, just for us to kind of get connected. If you're interested in learning more about like what I offer as a coach, that's a perfect space for us to connect. You get that information. I get clarity on like what it is that you're looking for, to kind of see for yourself, to accomplish out of whatever it is that you might do next. So that you can access that through my website. And then also I have social media on IG, LinkedIn, YouTube, that folks can follow me there if they are interested in following. I drop in like tidbits, stress relief snippets, I say consistently, and I drop those in there as well. So if folks want to follow there, they can do that as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being on the podcast, Andrew. For everyone listening in, make sure to go check him out. If you're dealing with stress, as everyone else is, or for sure everyone is, but make sure to go book that call with him. And thank you for being on the podcast as well. And I'll see everyone in the next episode of Zero to Empire.
Thank you for having me.